I'll tell you what, man. It's a bad day to be Alan Shearer. Manchester City have just shocked the world of football and signed Erling Haaland to a 9.5-year extension, going all the way to 2034. Let me say that one more time. Manchester City have just extended Haaland's contract for 9.5 years. What? I mean, has any club ever had a better January than Manchester City this year? Now, let me make this very clear. A better January off the pitch, because on the pitch, they continue to have their own problems. We understand the results, the injuries, the age, everything, right? But off the pitch, oh my goodness. Omar Marmoush, here we go. Khusanov, here we go. Vitor Reis, here we go. And now, the best goal scorer on the planet, arguably the best striker on the planet. 9.5 years. It's a decade. They extended him to a decade. Erling Haaland will be playing for Manchester City for the next 10 years. Wow. Wow. This deal sees Haaland basically commit himself to the club until he's 34 years old. And there's a few different angles that we have to look at this from. But more than anything, it's Manchester City. This is a serious institution. It's a serious institution. And yeah, you can direct your problems with look, the alleged charges against them, the amount of money that they're kind of being funded by this massive organization. I get all of that. But let's look at it from a purely footballing lens here. They're serious. They are a fully serious footballing club, because this blip that they're on right now, and to be honest, in the grand scope of the Pep era, it is a blip. It's a bad moment, but it's a blip. This blip, I know so many clubs, Manchester United, that would go through this kind of blip and say, you know what, let's just go at it again next year. Maybe it's just a bad stretch of form. Liverpool, we'll just add a few players here and there. Arsenal, we'll see how it goes. Maybe there's an opportunity. Nah, man, Manchester City are serious, bro. In the midst of this period, they've brought in a new sporting director in Hugo Vienna. Sporting director of football. You know, those terms mean the same thing these days as far as I'm concerned. They've extended Pep Guardiola for another 2 years. They've went and signed 3 players in the space of 2 weeks in the January transfer window. 3 very good players in regards to potential and at this current moment. Marmoush is the hottest property in the Bundesliga at the moment. Vitor Reis is a player that in Brazil is being talked about as a future potential Thiago Silva regen. Khusanov is incredibly regarded in terms of Ligue 1 talents. All 3 of them will be Manchester City players. And now, this bit of news to top it all off is just remarkable. It's remarkable. We don't know the exact fee at the moment. We don't know the exact wages he'll be being paid, but according to Fabrizio Romano, according to David Ornstein, this deal, this extension, is one of the most lucrative deals in the history of football. Erling Haaland will be getting paid more money than virtually any single footballer before him, ever. It's one of the biggest contract extensions in the history of the sport. And forget about how much he's getting paid, because it's a lot. I'm sure, bro, the amount of money he's going to be making per week at Manchester City is going to be ridiculous. But how long he's going to be getting paid that money as well, too, is mind-blowing. It's 10 years. He's going to be 34 by the end of this contract. And I don't have any qualms about it. Honestly, I think well done. Well done to Manchester City for showing so much loyalty and trust and commitment to, at the moment, it's a very easy sell. Erling Haaland, best striker on the planet. Of course, you give him a new contract. But you're trusting in this guy for the next 10 years and also rewarding him for his loyalty to the club, for signing there in the first place. This is a player in Erling Haaland. Let's not forget that at one point, a lot of clubs in Europe were afraid to even go near him because of the long-term commitment. Is Erling Haaland signing for your club sustainable in terms of a long-term future? Because the potential that he always goes to Spain is always there. So many people were saying that. Man United didn't want to sign Erling Haaland because his agent at the time, Mino Raiola, wanted to put a release clause in there. And they didn't back themselves. They said, no, we're not going to basically bow down to the will of any agent. When he was at Dortmund as well, too, Chelsea wanted, we don't want the buyout clause. We don't want it. Manchester City took that signing on, knowing, yes, they're going to have him for a few years, but with the risk that that buyout clause could be activated by anybody. And you know what? At the time, maybe it's a valid concern. Clubs like Real Madrid, clubs like Barcelona, historically, that's the kind of club that a player like Erling Haaland's status ends up landing at. But maybe this whole time, Erling Haaland was just saying to himself, you need to sell me on your footballing project. That's why I have this insurance policy. But if you sell me on the project and I feel happy here and I feel like this is the best place for me to play and win and improve as a person and a player, I have no qualm about staying here. And that's exactly what's happened. It's added by the fact that Erling Haaland is a boyhood Manchester City fan. As a child, his father played for the club. He's made no secret about it that he's followed this club his entire life. So from a Manchester City fan point of view, I'm sure their fans it means more to them, this kind of player as well too, extending for such a long time. But this deal is absolutely ridiculous. It's remarkable. It's ridiculous. It's come out of nowhere. Honestly, like, did anybody see this coming? Were there any murmurs the last few days that a big monster offer like this could be on the table and that Haaland would take it? It's remarkable. But give massive credit to Haaland as well too, because first and foremost, he deserves it. His goal record since joining the club is supernatural. I mean, let me read them for you real quick. 111 goals in 126 games. That's nearly a goal a game. And honestly, at one point, it was more than a goal a game until this little blip that he's been in along with the team where he's actually come down to earth. And even in this spell, he still has 16 Premier League goals by January. Like, it's just ridiculous. But the numbers that he's put up, the accomplishments he's achieved at City in such a short amount of time, mixed as well too with the potential that Erling Haaland continues to show. Like, he's amazing right now. How great could he be in the next few years? The fact that City will be in control of that future is massive for the club. And recently I was speaking to Cam, right? And the whole conversation was kind of around Pep versus Haaland, right? In terms of, if City were forced to choose between one of the two, who do you think is more important to the club to keep? And Cam said it's Pep, because Pep is more important to City. He can continue extending and he's so influential to their success. And I hear that 100%. But in Erling Haaland, it's almost more so, like, what he offers you on the pitch is massive, right? Anytime he lines up, City have a threat. City have a guy that could score a goal, 2 goals, 3 goals a game. It's a guarantee. He's almost always leaving a game with a goal. The fact that we get surprised when Haaland doesn't score goals is ridiculous, because we never thought that about David Villa. We never thought that about Zlatan. We never thought that about Robin van Persie or Drogba. Like, some of the best strikers we've ever seen. And I would argue, in certain regards, they're better footballers than him, in some of them. But better goal scorers, it's impossible. There are games where Van Persie doesn't score, and I'm like, oh, it is what it is. Drogba, he had plenty of seasons where it wasn't incredible goal scoring wise. Haaland, you get shocked when he doesn't score. That's not normal. That's something we saw with Messi, with Cristiano. Outside of that, I don't think there's been a player like that in my lifetime that I can remember, that every time he didn't score a goal, you're left puzzled as to how. That's on the pitch. Off the pitch, I believe signing Haaland down for effectively what could be the rest of his career, or at the very least, his best years, is massive for Manchester City. On the field, but also off. Because in Haaland, I believe this is a guy that, if he isn't already, is the first player they've ever had that has the potential to be a global superstar. Now, he's not the only player they've ever had that's a global footballing superstar in terms of De Bruyne, one of the best players you've ever seen. Aguero, the best foreign goal scorer this league has ever seen. David Silva, a magician. Yaya Toure, Rodri, the club's first ever Ballon d'Or winner. They've had brilliant footballers. By no means am I trying to suggest otherwise. But there's differences between brilliant footballers and superstars. And I'm talking like players that they supersede the game in terms of their impact. I'm talking like Messi, Cristiano. I would even go as far as Neymar, Maradona. Players that, like, they become almost like David Beckham, for example. He's not as good as the players I'm naming, right? And I'm not saying Haaland is Ronaldo or Messi, but in terms of, like, they almost become recognizable outside of even football fans. And that's not, you can't say that about everybody. As brilliant a footballer as De Bruyne is, you ask any person on the street who De Bruyne isn't a football fan, they might not know who he is. But the superstars, I know people in my family that don't watch football. They know who Mbappe is. They know who Neymar is. They know who Messi and Ronaldo are. They know who David Beckham is. I don't think City have had a player of that status at the club. And that's not the most important thing, but obviously results on the pitch are. And that's what makes you a bigger club. But having a global icon like Erling Haaland has the potential to be is only going to continue elevating the commercial success of Manchester City, the global presence of Manchester City, the global status of Manchester City. They have established themselves in the space of 15 years as a big club, like a very big club, a club that has won the Champions League, that's won trebles, that's won bucket loads of league titles. They're a big club. Erling Haaland, having players like Erling Haaland almost lifts you to super club. I genuinely believe that. And I think he's the first player that has that kind of potential off the pitch in terms of commercial, in terms of media, in terms of social media, that could genuinely continue upgrading Manchester City to a level they already are at, to another level altogether. I really believe that. So I think it's a massive deal for both parties here. And it's incredibly interesting because just a few miles down the road, I don't know actually how far between Liverpool and Manchester are, it's not that far. You have the Salah, the Van Dijk, the Trent situation. And this is why I say Manchester City, their ownership are serious. Their board are serious. Their executives are serious. You can question the methods, but the intent is seriousness. And then you look at Liverpool. Salah is 31, 32 right now. Van Dijk is around the same age. Trent is actually in his prime. And they're haggling over money over the three best players because of the fear of, long term, what could this mean? How is Salah going to age in the next 2 years? Is Van Dijk going to be able to keep this level up for the next 2 years? And you could say, look, Salah's in his 30s. Van Dijk's in his 30s. Haaland, it's an easier decision to make. But Haaland is on this money now. He's on this contract until he's 34. So City aren't giving him this contract for now. They're giving him this contract for the next 10 years. Haaland will be 31, 32, 33, the same years that Salah and Van Dijk are right now, where Liverpool are hesitant to give him that money. Man City have said, no, we have full trust in you and we have full loyalty in you as well too. He's given them less years than Salah and Van Dijk have, and yet they're rewarding his loyalty and his contributions more so than Liverpool. They have no doubt, or if they even have a doubt, they're willing to overlook it because of how much they value Haaland. So that even when he's in his 30s, they want to still be having this connection with him. Liverpool, with Mohamed Salah in the form of his life, with Van Dijk captaining his side to a Premier League trophy, are literally fidgeting over a few pounds. Obviously, it's more than that, but you understand what I'm saying here. That's the difference. That's why Liverpool are having an amazing season right now. Is anybody sure that they're going to be right back there next year, the year after that? Not if Salah and Van Dijk leave. If they keep them, yeah, of course. But if not, I'm not so sure. A club like Manchester City, this is a blip. This is why I say it's a blip. It's just a bump in the road. Because clubs like Manchester City, institutions like Manchester City, ownership groups like Manchester City will guarantee they'll be back next year. I can bet you anything in the world Manchester City will be back challenging for the league next year. And it's not because they have a divine right to do it. It's because the aggression and the ambition that they show in the market, that they show in putting together a good team, and not just putting it together, but keeping it together, is second to none in England. Man City will be back next year, because that's what serious clubs do. You mix that with the likes of Marmoush, with Khusanov, who I haven't seen too much of Khusanov and Vitor Reis, but also the thing with Manchester City as well too. More often than not with their signings, maybe the last few haven't been exceptional over the last few windows, but more often than not, you can trust the recruitment is going to be top notch. Now, Omar Marmoush is an interesting one. I think he's a brilliant player. I was very keen on him signing for Man United, because I think in those positions behind the center forward, in those dual 10 roles, I think it's a match made in heaven for him, because he likes to occupy that space in and behind Ekitike, playing on either side of him, playing in behind. He's almost a 9.5 more than he is a 9, in my opinion. Incredible goal-scoring instincts, incredible movement, very quick. Obviously, Man City's a much better team than us. They have a much better manager. They have an elite manager, one of the greatest managers of all time. The money they're probably paying him is more than United would offer. Obviously, if you get offered a place at Man United or Man City, at the moment, you take Man City. I'm not suggesting otherwise. But what I am saying, I feel like there was more of a role for him at a team like Man United than there is at Manchester City. Now, this isn't me saying he's going to flop at City. I'm interested to see where Pep and City envision him playing, because I don't really see a role tailor-made for him at this exact moment. Now, Pep might see fit that Marmoush is so brilliant that you change the system up for him, and that's what the best managers do. But in this current setup, I'm really a little puzzled as to where he fits into City's best team, because he's not an out-and-out winger. And at the moment, yes, City don't have the greatest wingers at the moment, but I don't think he as an out-and-out winger is like a marquee player per se. And he's not going to start over Haaland. Is there a potential that they play him together in a front two, and it's almost he's playing off of Haaland? Perhaps, but City don't really play like that at the moment. And if they do, maybe Foden is that guy who's kind of hanging around the pockets behind him. Is he going to take up a Julian Alvarez role, kind of be that replacement for Alvarez that they should have gotten when they received that much money? Maybe. I'm very interested in seeing where he works out, because from where I'm sitting right now, and I think where a lot of fans are sitting, it's not crystal clear where he fits in. But this is just me questioning maybe the fit. The quality is undeniable. The ambition is undeniable. I think many teams around the world would have looked at Marmoush this window or even in the summer and said, that's a player I would love to have at the club. Man City have gotten it done. Khusanov, Vitor Reis, these are players I envision kind of becoming this new dual center back, right back mold that Pep has fallen in love with in terms of Akanji. Ake obviously does it on the left, but you understand what I'm saying. John Stones. Could those two potentially be the next in line? They're younger. Khusanov has exceptional pace. Vitor Reis, I haven't seen anything of him, but everything that I've heard, the guy is a top prospect. You'd have to imagine that they're kind of coming in to replace the likes of John Stones, to replace the likes of Akanji, to replace the likes of Ake, whose injury problems and their age have slowly started catching up with them, especially this season. Kyle Walker is probably days out from an exit to potentially AC Milan. They need depth in those fullback positions and those center back positions, but more so than anything, they need midfielders as well too. But the thing is, right, they need midfielders, and I'm confident City will go after a midfielder. I'm confident that whether it's this January or in the summer, they will address that. because this is what the best clubs do. This is what the most serious institutions do. And as I've continued saying in this video, City are right up there when it comes to seriousness, ambition, aggression. This Haaland deal it encapsulates it, man. And on the subject of 115 charges, now, of course, they're all alleged, and there is a massive court case going on to kind of review and find a solution to all of this. But let's be real. Manchester City committing this much money and this much of their future to one man doesn't really indicate to me that they're going to be charged for any of this. A football club with actual fear that they're going to get charged with the severity of punishment that the Premier League or whoever has kind of threatened them with does not commit this much money in this many years to one player. It's impossible. I'm not trying to be a court of law here, right? This is just a court of public opinion. Manchester City do not give Haaland this contract. They do not spend this much money in January, in my opinion. They do not renew Pep for another 2 years. But in particular, the contract, that's not being given to Haaland. 9.5-year deal, most lucrative, or one of the most lucrative in the sports history, if they genuinely believe that these counts, that these 115 charges are actually going to come to fruition. I think Manchester City have beat the case. I think they have. Now, look, will they be hit with a fine? Maybe, right? I'm not saying they're going to beat all 115. I don't think that the severity of punishment that some people have hypothesized is going to happen. And this right here is the clearest indication we've had that Man City think they're in the clear. But I'm going to finish this off like I started it. It's a bad day to be Alan Shearer. I don't think Alan Shearer ever imagined that, and I think he said it numerous times on That's Football podcast, right? Haaland, he's not staying at Man City. That's the good thing for me, right? Like, he'll be gone. He has bigger ambitions than City. He's going to go to Real Madrid, Barca. He won't spend his whole career here. But the fear was always that if he does stay, that record is getting obliterated like that. I'm sorry, Alan Shearer, enjoy the last few seasons of your record. An incredible goal scorer, Alan Shearer, one of the greats the Premier League has ever seen. You're not having that record for much longer if Haaland fulfills his contract at City. It's impossible. It's impossible. I was reading earlier just now how much Haaland needs to actually surpass Alan Shearer. So this right here kind of illustrates Alan Shearer's career in terms of how long it took him to reach his record-breaking 260 Premier League goals and where Erling Haaland is after roughly around 100 games. So Shearer took 450-ish games to get to 260. Haaland's already at what? 80, 79 after 100? Basically, if we're even being conservative here, if Haaland averages 20 goals a season for the next 10 years, which is entirely realistic, right? It's very realistic. That's conservative in my opinion. If Haaland averages 20 goals a season for the next 10 years, he'll break Shearer's record. Anything more than that, anything more than 20, he's going to obliterate it before his contract's even over. We're going to talk about Haaland as the best goal scorer the Prem has ever seen. He's already the greatest in terms of like just the volume in such a short amount of time. I don't think we've seen a goal scorer of this nature. But he's going to have the record as well, too, to show for it. This was always the worry for Shearer, in my opinion. Not if Haaland was capable of doing it, if he would even stay the amount of years to do it to begin with. Now, I'm sorry, it's a formality. It's 1,000% a formality. Injuries aside, I don't know, contract dispute that maybe he leaves halfway through aside, which I would be shocked to see happen. It's a formality. It's only a matter of time. That's crazy because it's a record that I don't think many people thought would happen. Kane came very close, but ultimately him leaving to Bayern probably killed his chances off. Rooney, maybe if he committed his entire career to being an out-and-out goal scorer like he did for a few seasons out of necessity, maybe he could have done it as well too due to the crazy longevity of his career, how long he stayed in the Prem. But outside of those two, there's never really been a real threat to Shearer's crown. I think we finally have one. And just finally, a point on Haaland and Pep. I think this commitment, and that's really the word I want to kind of use here, because it's a commitment from both Haaland to basically spend the rest of his career, or the best years of his career at the club, and Manchester City to commit this amount of money for this long to him. The most important thing from this commitment is really, in my opinion, that City have to do more for Haaland. And it's not like they haven't done a lot for him to begin with, right? In his 2 to 3 years at the club, he's already won a treble, he's won 2 golden boots, he's come damn near close to winning a Ballon d'Or, one that he probably should have won to begin with. They've done big things for him, and he's done big things for them. But you've always gotten the impression with Haaland and City that Haaland is scoring these goals almost despite the way City play. It's like he's scoring these goals and playing the way he is, but maybe limiting himself because of how the team wants to play. Now, Pep is here for another 2 years. Haaland is here for 10. This is easy maths, guys. Haaland is going to outlast Pep at City. And while Pep has to be a huge priority for City and you have to give him what he wants and you have to maximize every year Pep gives you, I get that. I do think as well, too, the club owe Haaland that this next period for the club has to be all about Erling Haaland. And it's not like he's been left to the side. He's obviously been a big part of it. But I think this next era for City has to be prioritizing Haaland and how do you get the best of him in every single facet. Yes, he's going to score you goals no matter what. I always said Haaland, in my opinion, could win the Golden Boot playing for Bournemouth. But I think the team now needs to kind of evolve into more of a transition-based side that plays to Haaland's strengths a whole lot more. Because I think Haaland or the club have almost allowed narratives and stereotypes to kind of formulate because of the way Haaland is being forced to play. He's never going to be a brilliant footballer. He's never going to be a player that dribbles 8 players, right? But Haaland's best game, his best attribute is his pace, is his devastating ability on the counter in transition. And you don't see it enough because of the nature in which City play. I do think now that Haaland is here for the next 10 years, City need to make much more of a concerned effort to change the way they play to suit Haaland. Because he's shown you he can score 50 goals in a year by limiting himself. What's the potential if this guy actually gets to play the way he wants to play? I think we're looking at the most devastating goal scorer this sport has seen. That's scary. But I think City need to make a huge effort to do that. Yes, obviously the success of the team has to come, but can it not come in the form of Haaland really finding his best game? Maybe a way that he enjoys his game even more than he already is, while City continues to still be a success both on and off the pitch. That's the next challenge for City. But damn, this contract, the business that they've done, the arrival of Hugo Viana, the extension to Pep, it's bright times ahead for City. It's been a little bit of darkness the last few months, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I think it's very, very scary for the rest of the league.